In 2024, we had another successful season of spring football with the United Football League. The Stallions win their third championship, and the Battlehawks stay coping. But I'm not here to bash on overrated teams. I'm here to discuss the players that played for the UFL and made an impact on the NFL this season. After the season was over, 77 players would sign with an NFL team, but only 5 players would make it to see some NFL snaps. This is Peer Sports Productions, and these are the UFL players that broke into the NFL. First, let's start talking about the obvious player that everyone knows about. Long snapper Rex Sunahara. Sunahara had played 2 seasons with the San Antonio Brahmas, snapping for kickers like John Parker Romo, Donald De La Haye, or better known as Destroying, and Ryan Santoso. His time would earn him a preseason with the Steelers in 2023, and on August 8th, a contract with the Cleveland Browns. After playing out the preseason, Sunahara would be a final roster cut and start the season on the practice squad until being released 3 days later. His story could have ended there. By October 9th, he would come back and sign with the Browns after their longtime snapper, Charlie Hewlett, was placed on IR. From there, he would play the remaining 12 games as the Browns' long snapper, even recording 2 total tackles in special teams. Heading into 2025, he will be competing for another season with the longtime vet in Hewlett. Kevin Austin Jr., the senior first-team All-Independent from Notre Dame, was coming off his first spring season with the Birmingham Stallions, where he recorded 253 yards and 2 touchdowns in the road for that third championship. This production would result in Austin Jr. signing with the New Orleans Saints on June 20th, being his second team after spending 2 seasons with the Jaguars. After the preseason, he would start the season in the Saints practice squad. Then, the Saints throughout the season would suffer injuries coming from their wide receiver room, thus elevating Austin Jr. for weeks 10, 12, and 13, until signing him to the active roster before week 14. Overall, he would get some attention, especially with a toe-tapping catch against the Falcons. He would play 8 games and start 2 for the Saints, recording 11 catches for 151 yards and a rush for 9 yards. With a wide receiver room working to be healthy in 2025, Austin Jr. makes a case to be involved in their plans. Birmingham was a successful team in the UFL as it brought another player in the NFL in linebacker Dondrea Tillman. After spending his collegiate career in IUP, his first professional football team was the Stallions back in 2022 and has been with the team until June 20th when he signed with the Denver Broncos, his first NFL contract. His 92 total tackles and 8.5 sacks were impressive and got a few tryouts, but Denver is the first to pull the trigger. Like many before, he would start the season on Denver's practice squad. Eventually, he was promoted to the active roster in week 3 after roster spot opened up from placing Mike McGlinchey on IR. Tillman's debut against the Buccaneers was huge, recording 2 sacks and 2 tackles for loss in the win. He would be nominated for Rookie of the Week for his performance. He became the 4th undrafted player since 1990 with at least 2 sacks in his debut. From there, Tillman and the Broncos defense would break the record for most team sacks in a single season in franchise history. Dondrea would play out 12 games with at least 20% of the defensive snaps every game, recorded 23 total tackles, 7 quarterback hits, 5 tackles for loss, and 5 sacks. He would be honored for Week 17's performance against the Bengals with the NFL's Way to Play Award, an award given for the best player technique, in which he donated $5,000 to his alma mater at Fotomac High School. He would appear in the playoff loss against the Bills, recorded 7 tackles from 32 defensive snaps. Considering that this was his rookie season, he has made a place in a well-built Broncos defense. From here, out of the 77 players, only 2 would make the active roster to start the 2024 season, one being defensive lineman Jaylen Redmond. The Oklahoma kid, after a summer with the Carolina Panthers, just came off his first spring season with the Arlington Renegades. Though he would only play 4 games, he made them count, recording 18 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 4.5 sacks. This led to June 18th, where he would sign with the Minnesota Vikings. He would play 2 games out of the 5 until being moved to the practice squad after week 5. But after a couple weeks, Redmond was elevated week 7, 8, 9, until being signed back to the active roster. December became his month as he had his best performances. Week 13 against the Cardinals, he would record 2 tackles for loss in the 4th quarter that earned him the game ball from head coach Kevin O'Connell. In his Week 14 performance against the Falcons, he would stand out with 2 tackles for loss and 2 pass breakups. For the season, he played 13 games and started 2, recording 18 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups, and a sack. He would be active in the playoff loss versus the Los Angeles Rams, recording 1 assisted tackle and a quarterback hit. The Vikings were a strong defense until the end, and Redmond was part of that, and hopefully continues to be. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Jake Mother-loving Bates. Like Redmond, he just finished his first spring season with the Michigan Panthers. He was named on the All-UFL team for his season and instantly was getting calls from the NFL. But he chose to be close to home in Michigan, signing with the Detroit Lions, being the first UFL signing after the season. He would make the active roster as the team's starting kicker. He took that and ran with it. In Week 7, Bates kicked a 44-yard game winner against the Vikings and earned NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Week 10, he kicked 2 over 50-yard field goals to win over the Texans, which earned him another NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. It would take him until Week 13 where he missed his first field goal, and yet still earned NFC Special Teams Player of the Month for November. Bates Mania would continue with Week 14, kicking a 34-yard winner against the Packers, and Week 17, achieving the Lions' single-season franchise record for points scored. For the season, Bates earned 142 points scored, 26 of 29 field goals, 64 of 67 extra points, with his longest going for 58 yards. Bates was named as an All-Pro alternate behind former Stallion, now Cowboy, Brandon Aubrey. His run ended in the playoffs against the Commanders, kicking 4 of 4 extra points and 1 field goal for 28 yards in the loss. Jake Bates broke the NFL and will continue to be a household name for a long time. The amount of players making it to the NFL from spring football is ever growing. Before now, only a couple players stood out coming from spring, like Kevontae Turpin and Brandon Aubrey. So now that more players are making plays in the league, maybe more players will be signed, and maybe more will sign with the UFL. But if anything's being proven here, it's that spring football works.